Okay guys, welcome to a new video, and this will be a very long video because we'll finally be able to count all sources for final damage up, so let's do it. And even before I say anything, I want to mention again that final damage down is a little bit more friendly to the F2P players because it has more sources and it's a little bit cheaper. And when you look at final damage up, when we look at all these sources, we'll realize that it is a much more expensive stats than final damage down. And that is why we say that the whales will compete for final damage up much more than the F2P or the mid-spending players. So now let's begin. First of all, let's visit the most important part for final damage up, and possibly the trait that gives the biggest difference when you look at the stats of the whales, which is the level of soul cultivation. So soul cultivation gives you tons of stats for final damage up. Every level from 1 to 10 gives you 2 final damage up. Every level from 11 to 20 gives you 3. Every level from 21 to 30 gives you 4. And every one from level 31 to 40 gives you 5. So that's a huge source of final damage up, and it is very not easy to get. It is extremely hard because, as we know, that soul cultivation gets extremely expensive later on in the game. So that's why final damage up is usually really expensive. So apart from the cultivation for the beast, we also have neidan here. So remember that in neidan resonance, we will have final damage up when we look at this resonance here called the wilderness trembles. So you need mountain, water, and thunder orbs in order to activate this trait. And now the other things that we have would be the primordial beast. So when you look at the bloodline, remember that usually we will be able to get to level 140 and level 160 and 40 stars, which gives you 3% final damage up. So that's a source here. And that's basically it for the beast. And so when we look at neidan again, when we look at neidan list, this neidan here, the Lee Fire Chongqi, also gives you 5% final damage up for 1 star. So that's where you get a little bit more final damage up if you can afford the red relics. And now let's take a look at the genies here. So again, similar to final damage down, we have 5 genie that will provide final damage up as its passive source. So that would be Tao Wu, Peacock King, Treasure Keeper, Handmaid, and finally Jiangshi. So these 5 will be able to provide you with some final damage up once you unlock them and you get them to specific levels similar to final damage down, which is 4, 9, 14, 19, etc. And now when you check the resonance, the only resonance that will give you final damage up would be the Path to Divinity, which is the special collaboration Genie resonance. And so again, as we know, all these events Genie takes money and it's pretty expensive, and that's why final damage up is very expensive. So as you can see here, the resonance will give you quite a bit final damage up when you reach certain levels for these genies. So that's basically it for the genies. And now let's take a look at the ability section here. So as I've said before, there's 2 resonance for final damage down in ability and only 1 for final damage up. And so here we can see that it will be the equal to heaven. So you need transform, sentinel fur, and true sight. So each level will give you 3% more final damage up. And that's basically it for abilities. And now let's take a look at relics. Relics is a huge source for final damage up. Consider how you need to spend for a lot of the UR relics, which makes it very worse to an extent. So the relics that will provide final damage up as its stat would be, first of all, it would be the Pine Goose Banner. Then it's Festive Clouded and KS Lotus, and finally Pine Goose Axe. So these 4 will all provide final damage up as its basic effect. And now let's look at the sets. So first we'll look at the mortal sets. And when we scroll down to this specific set named Question the Heavens, we'll see that it will also provide final damage up. So 2% per each tier. So that would be your priority if you want to level that up for all players, including F2P and mid-spending players. And the other thing, when we look at the spirit relics, would be this set. Let's scroll it up a little bit. So it will be Hellfrost. So this is basically the same as the set of Question the Heavens. So each tier you get 2%. So that's some extra source here. So that's basically the sources for final damage up. And actually right now we have a new set called Emerald Void. So these relics are not out completely just yet. We actually have the Dragon Spear right now in the treasury as we speak right now. So as you can see here, that will be 4% final damage up per tier. And consider there's actually 3 UR relics per this set, which makes this entire thing super expensive, honestly. So these guys 3 stars is about 900 if not $1,500. So that's a huge money right there. So again, final damage up is extremely expensive. And so we went over everything for relics, and now let's look at the loss. So again, similar to final damage down, you can unlock Supreme Loss, and then that will include final damage up and down as this new attribute, and I'm very close to unlocking it, so quite excited for that. So now we went over the loss. Finally we have some extra places to get final damage up. First would be the Refinement, so also similar to final damage down. For Refinement tier 2, 5, 9, 14, and 21 basically, and above you can see all these, you can get final damage up. So that's Refinement here. And then we will take a look at the sect. So remember how for my disciples, you can see that if you have final damage up or down, I didn't mention that in the final damage down video because it's not out yet, but basically if you have final damage up as a passive skill for your disciples, then you will also get that. And I've mentioned in the sect video that that's basically what's important. You don't actually have to care about the attribute that much for daily plays. I mean, if you're in Ascension Arena, that kind of matters, but for daily duels and everything, you should just prioritize every disciple that carries final damage up or down as your disciple, basically. So that's sect disciples here. And we also have obviously compatriot. So right now there are 2 compatriot that has final damage up as its passive, which is Qingye and Phoenix. So these 2 carry final damage up. And I believe that will be it for the final damage up sources. And as you can see, okay, one more thing would obviously within abilities we also have sigils, but we probably know that already. So yep, sigils is sigils. And so basically that's about it for our sources for final damage up. And as we've covered before, all the major sources for final damage up, including soul cultivation, red neidan, and UR relics, all these stuff cost a lot of money, and that is why we say the whales will have a large difference compared to the mid spenders when it comes to final damage up. The final damage down may not be that much a difference, but the final damage up is definitely a big difference, especially with soul cultivation. And that's about it for this video, and hope you guys enjoyed it, and please let me know in the comment section if I missed anything or if you have more questions about it. Thank you so much.